Imagine waking up every night to the same nightmare. Waves crashing against an endless abyss, a whisper calling from the deep, and above it all, a massive leviathan hovering in the sky, watching, waiting. Welcome back to the Sinking City, but this time, it's different. It's been rebuilt, reimagined, and reawakened in Unreal Engine 5. And yet, something still feels wrong. This isn't your typical horror game. This is a descent into the unknown, where truth is buried beneath madness, and every corner of Oakmont whispers a secret you're not supposed to hear. You're not just playing an investigator. You are Charles Reed, tired, haunted, barely holding it together. This city doesn't want you here, but something much older needs you here. So we ask, is the Sinking City Remastered a true resurrection of a flawed gem, or just a fresh coat of paint on a sinking ship? Stick around as we dive into the depths. No jump scares, just slow-burning dread, unsettling beauty, and questions that fester like rot beneath the surface. This isn't just a game, it's a mystery, and you're already in too deep. Let's talk performance, because the Sinking City Remastered isn't just playing with shadows and fog to set the mood. It's trying to push visual fidelity into next-gen territory, and it shows, for better and worse. Booting it up on a beefy setup, AMD Ryzen 7 7800X 3D, 32GB of RAM, Radeon RX 7800 XT, you'd expect smooth sailing. But Oakmont has a way of dragging things down. With all settings maxed out and FSR set to native anti-aliasing, the game dips into the low 30s, flirting with unplayability during intense sequences. Ray tracing, while atmospheric, quickly becomes a luxury few rigs can afford. But flip the switch, FSR to quality mode, ray tracing off, and it's like draining water from a flooded room. The frame rate jumps, textures still pop, and the overall experience becomes way more stable. Visually, it's a mixed bag. Yes, the high-resolution textures and lighting upgrades bring life, or rather, unlife, to Oakmont's decaying streets. But then you zoom in on a character and boom, facial hair straight out of a 2008 texture pack. It's jarring, especially when the rest of the model, subtle eye movements, tired skin, finely detailed clothing, suggests so much care. The result? A technically ambitious remaster that looks better, feels smoother, but still wrestles with the ghosts of its own engine. There's something about Oakmont that crawls under your skin. It's not just the rain-soaked streets or the way fog hangs like a veil over every alley. It's the feeling that the city itself is watching you. The Sinking City Remastered doubles, down on atmosphere, and this time, it nails the quiet horror of isolation like few games can. The world breathes unease. Buildings lean like they've given up. The waterlogged roads whisper with debris and distant moans, and the color palette, washed out, grays and sickly greens, feels like it was pulled from a fever dream. Every creak of a door, every step through stagnant floodwaters adds to the sensation that you're not alone, even when you are, and you usually are. Where this remaster shines is in its storytelling through visuals. Protagonist Charles Reed doesn't need to say he's broken. His eyes do the talking, bloodshot, weary, twitching with dread. He hasn't slept. He probably can't. The city is rotting, and so is he. There's no exposition dump telling you he's unraveling. It's in the posture, the silence, the haunted stares exchanged during conversations. It's cinematic horror without the cutscenes. This isn't just a setting, it's a character. Oakmont feels cursed, alive in the worst way, and it's this layered environmental storytelling that makes the game feel less like a Lovecraft adaptation and more like a lost Lovecraft tale you've stepped into. The story in the Sinking City Remastered doesn't just nod to Lovecraft. It bathes in his mythos, pulls you under, and dares you to breathe. From the moment Charles Reed steps off the boat into the half-drowned madness of Oakmont, it's clear. This isn't your average noir detective story. This is cosmic horror, written in waterlogged ink. Reed is driven here by nightmares, visions of the sea speaking in tongues, of colossal entities floating where no light reaches. Oakmont, isolated by a flood no one can explain, is the kind of place where sanity is more a suggestion than a state of being. Locals eye you with suspicion. Families with deep, unsettling power play games behind veiled curtains. And everyone is having the same dreams. The game doesn't hold your hand through exposition. Instead, it lets the weirdness build naturally. Reed's first big case, investigating a missing expedition tied to the flood and the shared visions, acts as your anchor in this storm. But even as you try to solve it, questions pile up like bodies. Is the city cursed? Or are you just unraveling? This is where the Sinking City excels. It doesn't just tell a Lovecraftian story, it makes you live one. The unease is constant, the dread is existential, and the answers, they're never comforting. If there's one place where the Sinking City Remastered truly finds its voice, its heartbeat, it's in the investigative gameplay. This is where the game drops the pretense of traditional action-adventure mechanics and fully embraces its noir roots. And honestly, it's fantastic. As Charles Reed, you're not some super-powered ghostbuster with infinite tools. You're a private investigator navigating a city that barely tolerates your presence. Your greatest weapon? Your mind. The core of the gameplay revolves around tracking clues, parsing conflicting testimonies, cross-referencing documents in dusty archives, and using your supernatural ability, the mind's eye, to piece together events that already happened. Mind's eye isn't just a gimmick, it's a gateway. One minute you're examining blood splatter, the next you're reconstructing a ghostly crime scene in reverse, trying to figure out who moved where, when, and why. It's less about holding your hand, more about letting you stumble, theorize, and actually investigate. And when it clicks, when you connect that final dot, when everything makes sense, it's an incredibly satisfying moment of player-driven discovery. This is detective work that respects your intelligence. It doesn't shout solutions, it whispers possibilities. And in a genre oversaturated with fetch quests and waypoints, this kind of slow-burn deduction feels like a revelation. This is where the Sinking City truly shines. Now let's talk about the cracks beneath the surface: combat and progression. Because while the Sinking City Remastered thrives in slow-burn deduction, it stumbles hard when it tries to be something it's not: a third-person shooter. Combat exists here, but it often feels like a guest that wasn't invited to the party. Reed can wield a basic pistol, eventually unlocking heavier options like a shotgun or SMG. But none of it feels good. Shooting lacks weight, hit detection is spotty, and enemy behavior is inconsistent. You'll swing from breezy encounters to frustrating slugfests with bullet sponge monstrosities that feel more like a chore than a challenge. These fights don't just interrupt the pacing, they dilute the tension the game builds so effectively elsewhere. Then there's the upgrade system. As you investigate and earn experience, you get knowledge points to invest in passive perks. But here's the catch: these upgrades rarely impact the parts of the game that matter. Want more health? Sure. Carry more bullets? Go ahead. But don't expect anything that improves your detective skills or makes you a sharper sleuth. It's an RPG layer without real relevance, bolted onto a system that didn't need it. It's frustrating, because when the game trusts itself to just be a detective horror experience, it's compelling. But when it grabs the shotgun and tries to be a survival action game, it forgets what made it special. The Sinking City Remastered is a curious beast, equal parts fascinating and frustrating. It's the kind of game that clearly knows what it wants to be: a brooding, investigative plunge into madness, steeped in Lovecraftian dread. And in many ways, it gets there. The atmosphere? Unmatched. The detective mechanics? Smart and immersive. The world of Oakmont? So richly eerie you can practically taste the salt water in the air. But then, There's the other half, the combat, the clunky progression system, the visual inconsistencies that feels like it's constantly pulling you out of that immersion. It's as if the game is at war with itself, torn between being a cerebral horror mystery and a by-the-numbers action experience. And the action, frankly, is the part you'll want to avoid. Still, when the Sinking City leans into its strengths, investigation, ambiance, storytelling through the uncanny, it delivers a gaming experience that's genuinely unique. It's not for everyone, and it's definitely not perfect. But if you're someone who loves mystery over mayhem, who enjoys peeling back layers of story and stitching together clues in an eerie alien world, there's something here worth exploring. So, what about you? Did Oakmont pull you under too? Share your weirdest moment, your favorite case, or the clue that broke your brain. Let's talk madness.